For stage 2, we're going to continue with our formula and further refine our facial structure with things like a basic brow, basic nose. Still, everything's going to be very simple. And by the end, it should look something like the Oscar statue. So let's continue with our annotations, the yellow layer specifically. And I'm going to remove a couple of the old ones that we don't need, namely this line down the center. So hold Control, we're going to remove it because it was conformed to the old sphere. And then from the front, we'll also remove this line, but I want to leave where the bottom of this circle ends. And so from the front, I can draw a new vertical line down the center, and then also draw a line from the bottom of this circle all the way across the front, like this. All right, so now we have not quite even thirds in the head. Up at the top, this top section, I want to cut in half, like this, and this is going to be the hairline. And then the center is the brow line. And then this bottom one, it's either going to be the bottom of the nose or the top of the lip. And I say either one because this formula, as you've seen, is not 100% perfect. And so this line especially, I find, can be either one of those. But just by looking at it, I'm thinking this is going to be more an upper lip, but I'll write out either bottom of nose or upper lip. And from here in the middle section, I'm going to pull out our ear shape. So if we look at the side view and continue these lines, right in the middle section behind the vertical center line. So let me grab my mask brush. Right here is where the ear is going to come out. It's going to fit in between these two lines. But the mask, I want to be smaller than these two lines because it's an oval shape that grows outward. You'll see what I mean. So a little oval like this in between the lines, Control-I to invert the mask. I'm going to enable dynamic topology for this. And we want, let's see, I need to use my snake hook brush, and the detail size I'm going to change to 7. All right, and then I'm going to look at my head from an angle, something about here, 45 degrees facing the head, or 3/4 view, and we're going to pull this structure out. All right, and now you can see that I start smaller from the mask and then pull it out into a rounded shape. And I want this to be a pretty simple oval type ear mass. All right, let's look from the side. Smooth it out. That looks pretty good. From the front, make sure that the top of the ear and the bottom of the ear fit within those lines we drew. And those proportions should be pretty close. So we will leave that as a basic ear block out. And then from the front, I'm going to use this hash mark that we made early on, because this vertical line is the center of the eye, and it also connects into the corner of the mouth area. So if this is the bottom lip, the top of the upper lip, in the bottom section down here, I'm going to cut it in half. And now we've got a point to connect a triangular shape. And this is going to identify the side cheek area. All right, so from the top of this intersection right here, I'm going to connect here with a line by hand, connecting these 2 points all the way down like this. And then from the side view, I'm going to connect this point again to the bottom of the jaw corner. All right, so let's just draw that straight line. And then we can connect along the jaw structure. All right, so this triangular shape, we're going to mask off. Make sure my mask is at full strength. I'm just going to paint in the triangle. Hold Control to refine the edge. Make sure I stay within the triangle. Control-I to invert. And now I'm going to grab the scrape brush because we are going to flatten this triangle. I'm going to start in the center since that is the point that's sticking furthest out. And then I'm going to plane away the geometry. All right, starting in the center and gradually growing my stroke area. Also, you can use smooth by holding Shift. And I want to plane this away so that it becomes flat. I think that should be pretty good. You can kind of get an idea by looking on the other side just how flat it is. And that should be pretty good. Alt-M, and let's turn off our annotations. Only thing I want to do here is sharpen the bottom of the chin. I'm going to do that with our Draw Sharp brush, and just with a low strength, let's invert the behavior. There we go. Just give it more of a corner. Very nice. That's much more defined in terms of jaw and chin. Now let's turn on our annotations once again, and we will define the brow finally. So with my Draw Sharp brush, I'm going to hold Control. Remember, I inverted the behavior so that plus is the default. That way all my brushes behave that way. Personally, I find it odd that the Draw Sharp and Crease brush are negative by default while the other ones are positive. So I like to switch that to positive so that I always know Control means subtraction. So I'm going to subtract with the Draw Sharp brush just below our brow line. Keep in mind, this is where the brow is going to be sticking out. So I want to draw the line just below it. This is where the eyes are going to sit. Now, how far do we go in? A little bit more than that. If we look to the side, you know, I kind of want right in the center of these two lines. Let's try with the annotation. So in the center of this line and this line, that's about how far I want to come in. Let me undo those strokes. And now with that subtracted from the geometry, I'm going to mask out this quadrant. Quadrant, it's really just a section. So from the line we just cut down to the bottom of the nose or the upper lip, that line right in here, this little section, all right? What I want to do here is flatten it from what we just cut in to the bottom of the nose. So Control I to invert the mask, and then from the front view, use that scrape brush again, focusing on cutting, wait, that's the flatten brush. I want the scrape brush, focusing on the top, planing that geometry away first, and then growing my stroke area to the bottom. So this is going to serve to flatten that out. Also hold Shift to smooth it out, Alt-M. That looks pretty good. Now we have a pretty flat plane where the nose is going to sit, and we can start to draw that out. Now, for the nose, we're going to draw a triangle from the middle of the brow to the center of this new section. All right, so with my mask brush, it's going to draw a elongatedly tall triangle. Although, again, you know, you can see once you draw the nose triangle if your line is going to be the upper lip or it's going to be the bottom of the nose. You can just sort of tell that this leaves very little room for the mouth. So I know that this is going to be the upper lip line, so I can remove a little bit of that triangle. All right, this is going to be our nose. Control I to invert. And with the transform tool, let's look at the side. Let's set our pivot to be the unmasked area, and we can rotate and move out so that we start to get a nose structure. Maybe scale it down slightly in Z. All right, I want to keep the bridge of the nose closer to the face and the tip of the nose further out. There we go, about like this. So if you're wondering how far to bring out the nose, it's kind of this length right here. And then from the front, I do want to scale this down. Whoops, not move. Let's try that again. Sculpt, set pivot to unmasked, scale this way. That's not working. How about sculpt, set pivot to the origin? Okay, now from the front view, I should be able to scale it. There we go, like this. All right, at this point, let's hit Control R to remesh. That's looking pretty good. I still feel like the nose is a little bit too long, though depends on the face, of course, but for a generic average proportioned face, I do feel like that needs to come up just a little bit more. So you can see just how this line is not as reliable as the others. And all the times I've done this formula, this line is routinely 1 mile marker or the other. All right, I think that looks pretty good. And so here from the front, we can cut in the mouth, the initial mouth shape with my Draw Sharp. You know, this is the upper lip, so I need to come a little bit below that. Push in, you know, a deep cut, maybe pinch it. There we go, something like this. And the mouth needs to come a little bit wider. Let's go back to the draw sharp, push this in. There we go, about like that. Although straight across kind of gives him almost a mischievous kind of look or expression, so I like to bring this down. Typically the mouth does slope downward. Not sad, but that's typically how the neutral looks. And at this point you should see a pretty distinguished face. And the last thing I want to do has to do with this side view upper left quadrant. So I'm going to mask it out. And then from an angle, I'm going to slice a little bit of a half moon shape from corner to corner. So we're going to be removing a little bit of the forehead sides. All right, Control I to invert. Let's go back to that scrape brush and do the same thing. We're just going to plane this side away so that it's nice and flat. All right, let's turn off our annotations. Alt-M to clear the mask. There we go. And then I suppose the very last thing I want to do is continuing to use the scrape brush. We're just going to kind of bevel off this really harsh edge all the way back. There we go. That's just hinting at the fact that we're going to round the head over eventually, but we're beyond the point of needing it to be a really sharp line. And at this point, maybe you can see what I meant by Oscar Man. Now we're ready for the third and final step of the block out, and it's going to make a significant leap towards a more organic structure. Still simplified, but more organic.